everyone, it's me, Krista. Welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome for the very first time to my little art corner here on YouTube. Today I'm playing around with the items that came in the May 2020 Premium Sketchbox and doing a scary painting. With the colors I got in here, I was originally thinking of doing a Joker kind of character. Specifically the Joker from Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth, the art by Dave McKean. I didn't want to do a full-on copy, but I did want to take that as a source of inspiration because McKean's art, I've always really enjoyed it. And I didn't just jump into this project on the board, I did a sketch first, and even before that I played around with the same paper that I did swatches on, and went to see how the colors played together, what I could mix with them, and just how it would work overall. And I didn't just jump into this project on the board, I did a sketch first, and even before that I played around with the same paper that I did swatches on, and went to see how the colors played together, what I could mix with them, and just how it would work overall. Here's a better image of that sketch I did with the watercolors, figuring out exactly where I was going, what I liked and what I didn't like. On the final project, I started with a sketch, which I did not film. I used a just normal mechanical pencil, a Bic one for that. Next, I went in with the gray Faber-Castell watercolor brush pen to do some of the base shading, and I erased my pencil lines just using a kneaded eraser. If you do this, you want to make sure that the marker is completely dry before pulling in that kneaded eraser. I did it a little bit too soon and smudged it. It's not a huge deal because, as you can see here, I'm layering over it with a bunch of colors. After erasing my pencil lines and getting that Faber-Castell gray marker in there, I started with just a base layer of yellow and went over it with the green and the blue, and these colors are all the Daniel Smith watercolors. I also used the red Ecoline watercolor brush pen to set down a layer of red in order to get that big old circle behind the head, the halo that you see in a lot of religious iconography. I also lightly pull in the Daniel Smith watercolor half pan in the ultramarine blue for part of that background. Now the video is actually caught up to what I'm talking about. All these layers at this point, I'm doing it very lightly, using a lot of water and attempting to let it dry in between. For some of the darker shadows, I'm pulling in the red Ecoline watercolor brush pen and then pulling the green and the blue from the Daniel Smith watercolors over it. This helps create some deeper shadows without having to pull in black quite yet. There definitely was a learning curve with using the Frederick's watercolor canvas board when compared to the hot press Strathmore watercolor paper, the 400 series. I noticed the color for the canvas board kind of sits on top. It doesn't soak in as quickly as it does with watercolor paper, which should be good for if you're mixing colors straight on that canvas board and you're trying to blend it out. It gives you a little bit of extra time with that. But for glazing techniques and things like that, I noticed when I would go over certain colors, even when they were dry, that it would lift up, which is not something I'm really used to when using a watercolor paper, so there were some adjustments I had to do with technique because I do love to layer. If you've seen any other of these art videos, that's pretty much what I do, is just layer upon layer upon layer. I also noticed that the colors, when applied to the paper, they seemed more vibrant, a little bit more luminescent. I feel like the sketch glows a little bit more than the final product on the canvas board. I do really like the brush that came in this set. It works really well. I do wish for this project, just because of what I'm doing in it, that I would have pulled in another watercolor brush that was a little bit bigger to help blend out the colors a little bit more. This tiny brush is great for details and for small blending, but for some of the larger areas, it's not as great at that. Throughout this whole process, I am just pulling in the Daniel Smith watercolors at various points and layering them more and more. I want the colors to be really intense for this one. I really like using vibrant colors in general, but I especially like doing them for horror paintings because I feel that it adds this element of something supernatural, unreal, and strong. For some reason, the stronger the colors, the stronger I think the thing I'm painting is. I don't know why, it's just a weird association I have. I was really impressed by the brightness and the opacity of the Hansa yellow from the Daniel Smith watercolors. I was able to put it on top of other layers of dried paint, and it still showed up very strong. So the pigmentation in that especially was amazing. At this point in the painting, I am starting to break up that red circle I have by pulling in more of the blue paint into it and doing kind of streaks between that and the red, the equal line marker red. And for this specific painting, I couldn't really sleep and I just wanted to work on something. I'm one of those people where it's like if I have trouble sleeping, I want to at least feel like I've accomplished something and use that time towards creating. I'm only bringing that up because certain parts of this were done at different times in the night from between like midnight and 8 a.m. And I stepped away and let it dry. And the lighting outside changed quite a bit, so some of the images and lighting in the video are kind of off. So I'm sorry about that. And now that it's dry in certain areas, I'm just going in with more layers to add some more shading to this little creature here. And I'm not pulling in any white for this one, neither white paint nor gel pen. Any of the lighter colors are me either glazing the Hansa yellow over what I have already, or I'm mixing it in with the green or the blue. For the half pan watercolors, I don't currently have a 10 or anything to put them in, so to keep them a little safe, I basically just use masking tape and taped the plastic over part of the packaging onto the parts that the paint is in. I did order an empty tin to put them in. I was originally just going to buy a half pan set of the Daniel Smith watercolors, but everywhere I looked, they were sold out. A lot of people are at home right now and creating stuff, and I can see why they're sold out. I actually really enjoyed these paints. I wasn't sure if I was going to like them, but I ended up really loving them. Back to the painting itself, I am starting to pull in some little glowing dots, some sparkles for around him, and I also brought a little bit of more yellow smoke coming out of his eyes. I wanted to give this feeling that he was glowing. Maybe an internal fire going on. I do bring in the Neo Pico line 3.3mm black liner very briefly in this one. I only wanted to use it to define some areas of the face and neck and ears, but I didn't want to overuse it for this one. And I just used that red equal line and let it get a little too wet to the point where it started pulling up, so I dabbed it with some cloth, tried to let it dry a little bit, and blended over it. There's also a wet spot by the ear that I did not notice at this point. I do notice it later when it's dry and kind of move around it to fix it. But like I said earlier, the color sits on top of this canvas, so it's better to wait for a while in order to try to blend out certain areas, because if it gets too wet, it just pulls it up really bad. So this video is almost over. Let's talk about the supplies. As I said earlier, I really enjoyed the Daniel Smith watercolor half pans. You don't have to use a lot of water with them. They layer really well. The colors are nice and bright. That yellow specifically is insanely pigmented. The Faber-Castell watercolor brush pen, I really only used it at the beginning for shading and to blend out some areas later, but it worked pretty well. The Ecoline watercolor brush pen, I think the Faber-Castell one actually worked better. I did like the color. It's a nice red and it worked okay. The Princeton Aqua Elite round size 2 brush, loved it, works really well, kept its shape beautifully. The Neo Pico liner worked nicely, it's really thin, did its job. The Frederick's watercolor canvas board, it was interesting. I actually prefer how the paints worked on paper better. I just think they were more vibrant on the paper. Overall, I thought all the items in this box worked pretty well. It's been much better than the past couple of sketchboxes we've gotten. I hope they keep up this momentum. But with that, this video is pretty much over. If you liked it, please hit that like button. If you have any comments, questions, feelings, concerns, or you want to share your experiences with any of the items in this box, please let me know all about it in that comment section down below. If you want to see more videos like this, please feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day or night to watch this video and listen to me ramble about art stuff. I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from you guys soon, and you'll definitely be hearing from me soon. Bye, everybody!